I am sorry for what I did. And I know it doesn't make anything better, it doesn't help, it doesn't replace what has been taken from you. And you should have it back. Everything. You should have your loved ones back. You should have all these.
So today's case takes place in Moses Lake, Washington, in United States. The case of a 14-year-old who killed his algebra teacher and 2 students and held his classmates hostage before a gym coach subdued him. But before we get on with the case, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to give a thumbs up as well. And with that being said, let's dive in. Frontier Junior High School in Moses Lake began 2 hours late on Friday, February 2nd, 1996, due to extremely cold weather. Barry Loukaitis skipped his morning classes and instead took a .30 caliber hunting rifle and 2 handguns, one a .22 caliber revolver that belonged to his father. Loukaitis was dressed as a Wild West-style gunslinger and was wearing a black duster. He walked from his house to his school, where he had entered his algebra classroom during 5th period. He opened fire at students, killing 2, Arnold Fritz and Manuel Vela, Jr., both 14. Another student, 13-year-old Natalie Hintz, sustained critical gunshot wounds to the right arm and abdomen and was airlifted to Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. Loukaitis then proceeded to fatally shot his algebra teacher, Leona Sears, in the chest. Teacher and coach John Lane entered the classroom upon hearing the gunshots to find Loukaitis holding his classmates hostage. He planned to use one hostage so he could safely exit the school. Lane volunteered as the hostage and Loukaitis kept him at gunpoint with his rifle. Lane then grabbed the weapon from Loukaitis and wrestled him to the ground, later assisting in the evacuation of students. Lane kept Loukaitis subdued until police arrived at the scene. But who really was Loukaitis, and where was he from, and what was his family conditions? Loukaitis was born on February 26, 1981, to mom Jo Ann Phillips and dad Terry Loukaitis. In early years, Loukaitis lived in Iowa and Minnesota and moved to Washington in elementary school. He was in student council, had a lot of friends, said to be very popular, and was on the A-honor roll. Many said he was a very nice boy before his parents were separated. He then started staying away from most people, claiming everyone was evil and bad. Well, Loukaitis' family was in a dysfunctional state, dealing with multiple issues. Loukaitis' parents separated in 1985 after his mother discovered that her husband was having an affair. She filed for divorce against her husband in January of 1996. His mother, Jo Ann Phillips, was a domineering woman who became increasingly distant and began speaking of suicide. She would frequently imply that her son, Barry, would also have to kill himself, and that the date of the double suicide would be on Valentine's Day of 1996. Barry talked his mother out of doing so by having her write down her feelings. Even though she did not follow through, it still left an impact on her young son. Telling your child that you want to kill yourself is not something he's likely to forget anytime soon. Psychologists hired by the defense team believed Loukaitis had either depression or bipolar disorder, while prosecution witness Dr. Alan Eunice, a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at the University of Washington, diagnosed him with systemic disorder. Eunice claimed Loukaitis could not have bipolar disorder because his personality was not developed at the time of the shooting. Loukaitis had hyperactivity and was taking Ritalin at the time of the shooting. He also had clinical depression, a mental illness present in the last 3 generations of the Loukaitis family and last 4 generations of the Phillips family. However, Loukaitis claimed that he was only intent on killing Manuel Vela and that the other deaths were accidental. And the reason why he wanted to kill Manuel Vela only because Vela used to taunt and humiliate Loukaitis. Barry also claimed that he wanted to strike back at Vela for calling him a slang word for homosexual a few days before. Barry's acts are thought to have been motivated by his failing mental state and bullying. In June 1996, the Spokane Court of Appeals to decide whether a 15-year-old Berryloukaitis should be tried as an adult or as a juvenile. On July 2nd, 3 members of the Spokane Court of Appeals convinced Judge Evan Sperline to allow court-appointed psychiatrist Joan Petrish to present testimony regarding Loukaitis' mental health. The trial was later moved to Seattle, Washington due to media publicity. Loukaitis had pleaded insanity on all charges against him and claimed that mood swings were the cause of these violent actions. During his trial, Joan Petrish testified that Loukaitis had been experiencing delusional and messianic thoughts before this shooting. He had stated he felt like he was God and would laugh to himself. He felt he was superior to other people, and then those feelings were later replaced by hate, disdain, and not measuring up. On the other hand, prosecutors Donna Wise and John Noddle argued that Loukaitis had carefully planned the shooting, getting ideas from the Pearl Jam song, Jeremy. The music video from Jeremy shows a troubled youth committing suicide in front of his teacher and classmates, although it was largely believed that Jeremy had opened fire on the class. This has been widely misunderstood because MTV had strong anti-violence imagery rules. The original video showed the child putting the gun into his mouth. However, the only images allowed to air were those of the children covered in his blood. Prosecution also said that he had gotten ideas from the Stephen King novel Rage and the films Natural Born Killers and the Basketball Diaries. Loukaitis has also stated that he tried to model his life after the novel Rage's protagonist Charlie Decker, who kills 2 teachers and takes his algebra class hostage. On September 24, 1997, Loukaitis was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, 1 count of first-degree attempted murder, and 16 counts of aggravated kidnapping. He was sentenced to serve 2 life sentences and an additional 205 years without the possibility of parole. He is currently imprisoned at the Clallam Bay Correction Center in Washington State. Loukaitis had requested for a new trial, but the Washington State Court of Appeals denied it in 1999. In 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that people convicted of murder, which they committed when they were under 18 years of age, could not receive automatic life terms without parole, and in 2016, the court ruled that the policy would also be applied retroactively. Loukaitis was heard for a resentencing in 2017, during which he apologized for the first time in a letter to the Grand County Superior Court.
I saw Mrs. Kairos plead with Barry to stop shooting. Barry, without hesitation, shot her. He showed no grace and no mercy.
As Loukaitis looked on, the daughters of teacher Leona Kairos also provided grim details of his attack.
She put the piece of chalk in one hand
and an eraser in the other.
Today, Loukaitis cried as John Lane, the heroic teacher who disarmed Loukaitis, wondered how this... Loukaitis wanted to stress he wasn't feeling bullied.
I didn't have the skill set that I needed to learn to be a man.
Loukaitis then agreed with prosecutors about...
He was resentenced to 189 years in prison. Natalie Hens, who was 13 when Loukaitis shot her in the arm, gave compelling testimony.
I saw Mrs. Kairos plead with Barry to stop shooting. Barry, without hesitation, shot her. He showed no grace and no mercy.
Her injuries nearly killed her. With disbelief and a heavy heart, she managed to make an appearance in the trial. According to her, she has relived the day of the shooting over and over again. With tears in her eyes, she added that her childhood ended that day. Hines stated that despite years of physical therapy, she still does not have full use of her arm. She remembered lying next to a dead classmate and witnessing Loukaitis murder their teacher. Your sentencing was to be irrevocable, like death, Hines explained. I am being victimized all over again today. She recalled how Loukaitis had entered the class with a hunting rifle and 2 handguns. He shot and killed Leona Sears, 49, as well as Manuel Vela and Arnold Fritz, both 14 years old.
Of his attack.
She loved to teach. She died with a piece of chalk in one hand and an eraser in the other.
Today, Loukaitis cried as John Lane, the heroic teacher who disarmed Loukaitis, wondered how this could have been prevented.
Why did you do it? You haven't told us why. Why Frontier? Why that day? Why that classroom?
Loukaitis wanted to stress he wasn't feeling bullied.
I didn't have the skill set that I needed to learn to be a man.
John Lane, the teacher and coach, heard the gunshots and he dashed into the classroom. He confronted and disarmed Loukaitis before pinning him down until the cops came. John Lane's bravery most certainly saved the lives of others. However, Lane claimed that he still had questions regarding that day. What motivated you to do it? Lane demanded of Loukaitis. He got no answer. To be honest, even maybe the killer himself has no idea why he did it. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Also, comment down below what you think about this case.